So you developed the confidence to go up on stage and actually play with other jazz players, but you're finding that your comping is starting to feel repetitive, right? You even, you went and you got the John Riley book, you worked through all those coordination exercises, maybe you even checked out some phrases on YouTube, or even transcribed some stuff from Philly Joe Jones or Art Blakey or one of your favorite jazz drummers. But still, when you go out there, it's just like the same ideas are coming out over and over again. And you feel like you're not really interacting with the band, all right? Now, if this is happening, there's a whole mess of things that could be happening because comping is a really layered skill. There's lots of different levels to it. And if you're working at the wrong thing for where you are with your development, then you're not gonna progress as fast as you want to. So that's why in this video, I'm gonna be breaking down comping at 7 levels of difficulty so that you can figure out exactly where you are in your comping journey and focus on practicing the exact right thing. Level 1 is ride cymbal accents on 2 and 4. Now, the biggest mistake I see with people working on their comping is that they start working on all the different coordination exercises and all the different vocab, and they're very focused on the vocab, but then they go to play the vocab and it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't sound right. And the reason is because they refuse to focus on their feel when they're first getting started. So there's gonna be a lot of people watching this who are more advanced, like they can play a bunch of different comping ideas, but it just never feels right. It never feels mature. So I highly recommend that if you're just starting, you start with a great foundation of building your feel. And if you're a little bit more advanced, you go back and you solidify this foundation, because that's what I had to do. I learned all the comping exercises and then had to go back and fix my feel, okay? So this is how you do it. Like a lot of people play the ride cymbal like this, very loose, right? Right? And at the very beginning, that feel is not driving enough. You're gonna hear that, a lot of times the bass player is ahead of you on the beat and you're not really leading the band. You want your ride cymbal to have some zip and some pop in it like this. And the easiest way to do that is by accenting 2 and 4, okay? So it's really important you get the subtleties here. Here's how we're gonna break it down. Start by playing quarter notes on the ride, just all 3 inches, right? And you see how low I'm playing? Most drummers, when you do this, you're not gonna play that low. You're gonna think that you're playing low and it's gonna be about this high. It needs to be way down here, like really, really low. Okay, and then after that, practice keeping that low on 1 and 3, and then on 2 and 4, coming all the way back up. Again, most drummers will not be used to coming all the way back up when they start this. They're gonna go, this high. We wanna go all the way back up like this. And it's probably gonna feel like a clown show, like you're whipping back and forth, like these are really extreme dynamics. That's exactly what you want at this phase, okay? So get used to that. Once you can do that at a nice slow tempo, then you're gonna add the skip beat. And the skip beat, you just kind of let it fall gradually. It doesn't have to be like accents and taps like marching band. It can kind of be staggered like this. All right, really get used to that motion. That big upstroke is really the key. And then once you got it down, you can go faster like that. Now, if you do that, I just guarantee your time feel is gonna be better than just starting with like this loosey-goosey kind of ride cymbal, because it forces you to focus on how you're moving and the feel. And that accent on 2 and 4 tends to be very driving for beginning jazz drummers, okay? You know you're done with this when you have a great feel in your ride cymbal, you can do it without thinking. And honestly, that's gonna be the most important thing. When you go up on the bandstand and you know that you can just play the ride cymbal and make it feel good, that's what people want to play with. That's what makes the other musicians sound really good. But the natural thing you're gonna feel is like, okay, I'm up here playing this ride cymbal, I got this other hand, and it's not doing anything. And that's when you want to start to get into some more left hand comping. So level 2 is left hand comping. Okay, this is the fancy stuff. Everybody loves this, the coordination of it, the freedom of the jazz drummer's left hand. That is all very cool. I love it so much. Now, the important thing here is you want to make sure you maintain that beautiful ride cymbal feel that you built up in level 1 with the accents on 2 and 4. So here's how I recommend learning your first left hand comping, okay? The first step is to get an idea from one of your favorite jazz drummers. I've got this Philly Joe Jones phrase. It goes like this: 1 and 4, 1 and 4, 1 and 4. Okay? I'm gonna do it really slow because I want to focus on getting the ride cymbal accents, right? Not just mushing it all together, but getting the right accents so that the feel is maintained. All right? So we're gonna chunk it like this. We're gonna go 1, 2, okay? And then on the next ride cymbal, I'm gonna play the comping phrase on my left hand, and then I'm gonna play my ride at the same time. So like this. So you hear that I'm getting that accent on my right hand. Now I can add the next note, P3. Now I'm going to add the and of 3. Very good. There's going to be another accent on beat 4, and I'm going to play the left hand comping. See how I slowed down a little bit there at the end? That's totally okay when you're learning comping to get everything in the right order. At first, just slow down. It's better to get everything exactly right and go a little slower than it is to rush through things and miss notes. I got that. I'm gonna add in just that last skip beat and we got this phrase. Okay, next step would be to try to loop it. That's sounding pretty good to me. Now you know you're done with this when you can play it smoothly in time, it really flows, and you can kind of do it without even thinking about it. What you're gonna find though is even though you have this comping phrase that you took from Philly Joe Jones or Billy Higgins or whoever you like to transcribe, that it doesn't feel completely authentic. Even though you are kind of executing it, there's this extra level that makes it really sound like a jazz drummer. And that's when you're ready for the next level. Level 3, which is dynamics in your comping. Now, if you've got your own jazz combo that you're playing with, your own community band, and you get this comment a lot, your comping is too loud. Try to play less busy. It's probably because of this, okay? Because usually what happens is you're playing good phrases. You got good phrases from the Art of Bot Drumming or something like that, but it's just the way that you're playing them. If you check out a bunch of jazz drummers, you'll see that their comping is not like high left hand like this. It's very subtle for most of the notes, and then there's a few accents. All right, and that's what you want to cultivate. That's what's going to make it sound less busy. It's going to make it sound more appropriate, and it's going to fit more often, right? It's a great drummer named Joe Farnsworth. I saw him play live at the Jazz Showcase in Chicago once. And man, he was comping so much, but it never sounded busy because his dynamic was very, very low, except for a couple of sparse notes, right, that he would accent. So how do you do this? You take your comping phrases that you learned from Philly Joe Jones or Billy Higgins, and you learn them with dynamics. So that Philly Joe Jones phrase from earlier, it's not just, it's actually, right? It's high, low, high. And that's the kind of subtlety that we need. Okay, so you take it and you chunk it again, right? I'm gonna go 1, 2, and, but I'm gonna accent that left hand, right? Now this is trickier because you have to let your right hand go low and your left hand go high. It's another level of coordination. Right, and then add the end of 3. And that's a low and a 3. Now we're gonna add beat 4. We got accents on both hands. All right, and then add the rest of the beat. Now, obviously, I'm doing this with one phrase. You should do this with like 6 phrases or 8 phrases, or honestly, if you're in it for the long haul, like 1,000 phrases, right? That's how you get a really big jazz vocabulary. But if you do this, now your comping is gonna sound much more authentic. You're gonna get less of the play less busy kind of comments. But what you're gonna feel is like, I have all these great phrases, but I don't feel like I'm really interacting with the band. I feel like, I'm just playing along to them rather than pushing them and conversating with them and going back and forth. And that's when you're ready for the next level. Level 4 is comping with and against. So you're at this stage now where you have enough coordination and you have enough subtlety that you can comp, but you now need to start to focus on interaction. And what we need to do is we need to train your ear to think about phrasing, which is when you use ideas rather than just what the ideas are, right? It's when. So we use an exercise called with and against with my students at the jazz school, right? It's simple. When the soloist is playing, you play in their gaps, right? That's against. You wait till they stop playing and then you play in their gaps. Something like this. Like if we were doing Miles Davis solo on Doxy. You see how I'm being very patient, I'm being very disciplined, I'm waiting until he stops playing. Most of you, you're gonna feel very uncomfortable with that at first because you're probably used to just chattering, just kind of playing in the background. And honestly, at the beginning, that is kind of like a safety blanket because you feel like you should be doing something, so you just are always doing something rather than picking your moments, okay? So that's against. With is where you listen to their phrases and you kind of try to anticipate where they're gonna end or where they're gonna start, and you try to match them, right? Don't overkill it. You don't need to be a mind reader, but if you can kind of generally catch their direction and catch a couple notes with them, that's kind of what you want to go for, okay? Sounds something like this. Right? Now, obviously, I can cheat because I'm singing the solo and I'm comping, but the best way to practice this is put on a record with a solo that you really like, okay? And just the first time, just try to kind of guess where they're going, all right? Then play that same solo over and over and over again, right? There's this song, Night and Day, with Kenny Garrett, and Brian Blade is on drums. And I've played along to that record so many times, I can sing Kenny Garrett's entire solo, and I have it memorized. And every time I play along to it, I can kind of explore different ways to interact with him because I know that solo so well. So what that's gonna do is it's like you memorize this one solo, and that makes you better at comping to that solo, but it's also gonna make you better at recognizing the patterns in all the other solos that you hear, okay? So you wanna go deep on one to really build up this skill of kind of predicting or reading people's minds. And then start to, when you're listening to music, try to predict where they're going with it too. I used to do that all day, every day when I was young and I was learning all this stuff, okay? Then, once you have with down and against down, then you wanna start to kind of mix them more organically, okay? The way you do this is you kind of catch some with, some against. It shouldn't sound like an exercise. It should be like blurring the lines a little bit, but you're hearing these things, okay? So you do something like this. Right? There's a real balance there. Sometimes I'm playing with, sometimes I'm playing against. There's a push and pull, and that's really like the artistic part of it. Because if you just play with every single time, then it's kind of just like a little AI formula, right? If you just play against every time, it's a little formula that we could just run over and over again. If sometimes you're with and then you break the pattern by going against, right? Then all of a sudden that's art, that's taste. How much do I match it? How much do I disrupt it? Okay? So you know you're done with this when you can really nail the against exercise and the with exercise just in and of themselves. Like you can restrain yourself enough to only do those, and then you can make it sound organic by mixing them. Every single person will probably say, well, I can sound organic by mixing them and just skip the with and against. You miss the point entirely, right? You have to restrain yourself. That's how you create more creativity, is you have to give yourself the limit of actually doing the with and against exercises, okay? A lot of my students have trouble knowing when they're doing that right, like how much is enough of that. So I recommend that you record yourself or get some feedback, okay? And that's exactly what we do at the Jazz School, is like you need to know where you are in this journey at all times so that you're focusing on the right thing. It's very easy to get distracted by like, oh, this shiny thing on YouTube or this lick that I heard Tony Williams play, and then you have all these gaps in your knowledge. So that's what I help my students with. We work on things like vocabulary, tune learning, transcribing, everything you need to actually become a complete jazz musician. And always know where you are in the process so that you're not just like lost guessing by yourself. So if that's something you're interested in, you want to work with me more closely, click the link in the description, send in your information. There's going to be a video about what it's like to study with me, how it all works, and then you can book a time to talk with me to see if I'm a good fit to help you with your jazz playing. All right. Now, once you've really mastered with and against, you're going to find that you can pick your moments more often, but the energy of the band is going to start to feel like you're sort of treading water, like you're sort of going in circles. This can happen. I know at the beginning when I was playing, I would go to jam sessions. I would play with, less experienced players like myself at the time. And it would feel like we were just kind of like playing the tune and playing it and playing it and playing it. And nothing really happened. There weren't these exciting moments like I see with drummers like Ari Honig or Brian Blade, right? So you need to find a way to add some excitement, some energy, some memorable moments to your comping and actually make music. And that's when you're ready for level 5, which is releases, okay? A release is just playing a big accent or a big crash, something that is separate from all the comping, the chatter, even though I hate that word, that's happening, okay? So the easiest way to do this is to just play sort of a crash. And what we do is we play a different texture of crash like this. Usually we don't go for like the gong hit, which is where you hit the stick on the edge of the cymbal. Right? That's more of a crash sound. We go for this kind of slap or spank sound, which I'm taking the wide part of the stick and I'm going across the cymbal. So it's a little more articulate than just the open crash sound, okay? So you take that sound and you pair it with maybe a snare, maybe a bass, right? Right, and you want to make it kind of blend into the time, but also be an accent so it sticks out a little bit, okay? So the way to practice this is like start with every 4 bars or every 8 bars, you add in one of these, right? See what I mean? It adds some interest, it adds some spice and some flavor into your comping. Then what you want to do is you want to start taking some of those comping phrases that you learned from Philly or Billy Higgins and ending them with releases, okay? So it's kind of like the comping phrases become like a lead-in into the release, and the release is the thing that matters, right? So something like this, You see there, I did a different texture. I did my left hand on the open hi-hat, my right hand on the snare. Same concept though, big release. I'm leaning towards something, and this is gonna create a lot more meaning in the music when you add these moments. Another thing I wanna say, some of my students will fall into this trap where they'll play a different texture, but not a different dynamic, right? So I see them doing this all the time. You see, I'm doing the crash, but I'm playing it like the same dynamic, or even sometimes quieter than the rest of the comping. And that doesn't really work, right? Listen to the difference. If I play the same dynamic versus an actual accent. It just creates so much more drama. And that's one of the biggest things I see, the difference between sort of amateur drummers and really professional drummers, is that the professional drummers know when to play accents. I think Ed So said that the difference between good drummers and great drummers is accent. Now, you know you're done with this when you can include these releases naturally in different parts of the form, in different parts of the soloist, with and against, right? And you can control the energy of the solo by kind of doing that. But what you're gonna find is that you're gonna start to play with some really good players who can play these really long phrases without ever resolving, who are very comfortable just holding the tension for a very long time. They're not just playing 4-bar phrases or 2-bar phrases. They can hold it for 8 or 16 or 32 bars without ever breaking the tension. And you're gonna feel like if I just break the tension every 3rd or 4th bar, it doesn't serve it correctly. You're gonna feel kind of like you can't hang. So you need to get better at creating tension, and that's when you're ready for level 6, which is tension and cross phrasing. So what do I mean? When you're breaking the tension every 4 bars, it falls into a pattern that can get old at a certain point. What you want to be able to do is create tension and release. That's like the fundamental, mechanism of playing music, right? I hear great bands like the Miles Second Grade Quintet, with Herbie Hancock, Tony Williams, Ron Carter, Wayne Shorter, and Miles, of course. Man, they are masters of tension and release. And what I'll hear is they're going along, they're playing the time, right? And then Herbie Hancock will create some tension. He'll play a polyrhythm. And then Tony Williams will play another polyrhythm, maybe with it. He'll go, or maybe he'll play a different polyrhythm. So it's kind of like this moment where they're together and then it goes, and then boom, there's a release, okay? So you need to be able to play longer phrases, specifically with polyrhythms, all right? So check this out. I'm gonna take a phrase, I'm gonna pretend that I'm playing 4/4. And I'm gonna play a phrase that is in 3, okay? So I have this phrase, I got it from Roy Haynes, okay? It goes like this. See how that's in 3? It's 1 and 2, 3 and 1 and 2, 3 and. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play in 4, and then I'm gonna go into my polyrhythm, my groups of 3, and then release it after 4 bars or so. Okay, let's see what that sounds like. Right? You see, I played the phrase and then I had these ways to get out of it. I maybe played a release, right? Or something like that. But it's the fundamental concept is I have something that builds tension and then I have a way to get out of it and release it, okay? At the very beginning, you're gonna need to get used to the different coordination of playing this idea and then, okay, where do I resolve it? Is it on the end of 4? Is it on beat 1? Do I do a little fill to get out of it? Or can I just kind of fly into it? But if you can do that, then what's gonna happen is when you hear a pianist or a saxophonist really dealing, they ratchet it up to the next level, then you're gonna know, okay, cool, I can build some tension here maybe for 8 bars, 12 bars, and then boom, when it releases, that's just gonna feel so, so good. Now, if you make it this far and you can do this really effectively and very suavely with a good feel, all those things, you are doing pretty well as a jazz drummer. By the way, I would love if you guys tell me in the comments where you think you are in the levels so far. There's one more level, just for that accountability so that you can all start working on the next right thing for your level, okay? But what you're gonna find is when you're playing these tension and releases, this happened to me when I was probably in college, right? Is that me and my buddies, we figured out how to do all these cool these cool, tension and release and polyrhythms, and we're so cool. We're in jazz school. We really got it. We've been checking out Miles, all these things. And we started to fall into a bit of a pattern of kind of doing the same thing all the time. It's like this cycle: comping, tension, release, comping, tension, release. And it starts to get a little bit old, Creative people like us, we always want to be on the cutting edge. That's what creativity is, right? And that's when you know you're ready for level 7, which is expectations and surprises. Now, playing jazz music at the highest level is really just communicating your personality, right? When you have all these things that are taken care of, like coordination and vocabulary and phrasing and knowing the tune, then what starts to shine through is the unique things about you. For me, I'm a jokester. Like, I'm the silly guy in my friend group who's trying to make everybody laugh. And I like to show up that way on the bandstand too, by using surprises and expectations, okay? So the way this works is very simple. There's a million ways you can do this, but the main thing is to set up an expectation and then to defy it, okay? So what do I mean by that? You could set up an expectation for dynamics, right? Let's say we're going towards the bridge on rhythm changes, and I just start crescendoing and crescendoing and crescendoing, and then right? That's what I'm gonna do. Let's see what that sounds like. Right? Man, that is really dramatic. If you're doing it on the bandstand, I guarantee you, if you really pull that off, your saxophonist might look at you like, what was that? Something like that. But it's really gonna change the direction of music, and people love to play with stuff like that. It's just like having a funny friend who says unexpected things, right? It makes you behave differently. It gets you out of your comfort zone. It helps you to grow. Another way you can do this is by setting up a motif and then departing from it, okay? So repeating the same idea and then changing it, right? So let's say I do something like this. You see, I set up an idea, went away from it, and came back, right? Set up expectation, defy it, and then come back. You're hearing real structure in the music, okay? You could do something like this. Right? I played 1N, 3N, and then switched it to 2N, 4N, right? Let's say I was playing with a band member and they were catching that figure with me because I kept repeating it over and over again. And then one time I played it a beat later. They're gonna laugh. They're gonna be, you got me. You know what I mean? That's the kind of playfulness that you want in your beat. Another thing that's really good is delaying releases, right? So I see players like Brian Blade do this a lot, where instead of releasing on beat 1 where everybody expects it to be, it's like, what if I release on beat 2 or beat 3 or something? You build up, and then, all right, that tension, that creates some nice surprise in the music. So something like this. Right there, you thought I was gonna release on beat 1, and then I went 1, 2, 3, 4, right? This is really useful on something like a blues, where everybody is super comfortable with the form. You expect a release on beat 1. What if we release on bar 5, right? That kind of silliness, especially if you do it really intentionally, okay? That's the important thing. A lot of you are gonna be at level 2 and you're gonna rush to this level 7 because it's exciting. And you're gonna do crashes on the second beat and it's just gonna sound like you're lost. You have to have all the other stuff dialed in so that it sounds really intentional and that it doesn't just sound like a mistake, okay? So you wanna be really intentional with it. You wanna set up the release. You wanna defy expectations. You know, probably if I'm gonna do something like that, I would have already released on beat 1 a couple times. So it's, again, setting up an expectation and then surprising people with it. Now, you know you're done with this phase when you feel like a jokester on the stage and people giggle when they play with you because you set up all these little surprises for them and they just love playing with you. The next problem you're gonna have after this level is you're not gonna have any time because you're gonna be having all these gigs because you're comping like a champion. So if you found this video helpful, I hope you'll subscribe because I'm making more just like this. And you'll probably find this video that I did on 9 levels of jazz soloing interesting as well. I'll see you on the next one.